Well, in the French press, much speculation about a possible lead as to the identity of the men that may be behind these shootings this morning. For more on that, I'm joined by Elena Casas for a look at the French press. Let's begin with a look at how the newspapers have been covering it, and indeed a look at this lead, Elena.
Yes, that's in Libération, which has gone for a very hard-hitting front page here, almost as if they thought there was nothing really to say. So it's just black with the names and ages of those 4 people killed in Toulouse yesterday and the 3 soldiers who were shot over the course of the last week in the Toulouse area. Now, it's inside this paper that they look at a possible lead, which apparently investigators are chasing down. This is the 3 paramilitaries who were fired from the army in the Toulouse area for being neo-Nazis, having neo-Nazi tendencies back in 2008. Now, why might it be them? Well, investigators say it looks like this could have been the work of a professional, especially the killings of those 3 soldiers over the course of the last week. He clearly had specific targets in mind, they say. He wasn't shooting randomly in the street. He seems to have known who the soldiers were. One of them wasn't even in uniform, raising the possibility that the attacker might even have known him because these 3 paramilitaries who were fired for neo-Nazi reasons were in that Toulouse area, so they would have known locally stationed soldiers, possibly. So that's something they're looking for, who these 3 people might be, trying to track them down. They're also, of course, looking at the political consequences in Libération. All the presidential candidates say they're going to stop campaigning for today and concentrate on what they call national unity. The paper's editorial says that's exactly the right thing to do. It would be wrong if anyone attempted to exploit this for political purposes, and it's good to have a stop and have a moment of reflection. They also say that a lot of the candidates should stop and think about the language that's been used in this campaign to do with race and religion, some of which they say has been quite strong, has been quite violent even. It's a subject that's come up a great deal, perhaps more than you would expect in a presidential election, and they say that maybe the candidates should be using this time of reflection to think about how they should be talking about this topic and whether or not there isn't a risk that some of the things they've said might inflame a racist extremist, although of course we don't know that this is a racist or anti-Semitic killing. That's just a possible clue that investigators have talked about. We don't know that. They're also talking about that possible angle in La Croix. Their headline is a national drama, and indeed in this editorial also they say the only possible or credible response from political candidates is silence, not trying to jump on this in any way. Of course, both Nicolas Sarkozy and François Hollande did go to Toulouse to show their solidarity yesterday, which the paper says was appropriate, but they should be very careful about what they say in the sort of raw emotional aftermath of this happening. Le Parisien also has this on their front page. They've got the tragedy that shattered France as a headline, and a student at that Jewish school being comforted as a front page picture. And similarly at Le Figaro, they have students being comforted there, and the headline, France horrified. And also in their editorial, they say all politicians, especially the candidates, should be using this moment to think about how they can best protect France's ethnic minorities from this kind of attack.
Now, as you mentioned, of course, Elena, campaigning is suspended until Wednesday night. But what impact is it likely to have, do you think, on the campaign when it gets going once again?
Well, officially, of course, as you said, it's off for the moment. There's no campaigning until Wednesday. But Libération is looking at the possible effects, apart from the way that race and religion has been treated in this campaign, and if the presidential candidates should be thinking about maybe they should talk about it differently. They're also looking at previous occasions when a shocking, violent act has occurred just a few weeks before an election campaign, and if that might have had any effect on the eventual result. They point out that in 1988, a few weeks before election day, 16 French soldiers were kidnapped by independence activists in New Caledonia, and an operation to free them that was masterminded by then Prime Minister and presidential candidate Jacques Chirac went wrong. 21 people were killed, and he then lost the election. So they say those 2 things might have been linked. Also in 2002, a gunman opened fire in a council meeting in Nanterre and killed 8 councillors, which shocked French public opinion at the time. And just a few weeks later, Jean-Marie Le Pen scored his best ever election result and got into the election's second round. The paper says those 2 events might have been linked when there are huge, very publicly aware crimes and people are very concerned about law and order issues. That might then cause them to vote for right-wing parties who campaign strongly on law and order. But of course, we can't link them too closely.
Elena Casas, thanks very much indeed for all of that.